the Sundarbans. A labyrinth of water and shadow where India meets Bangladesh. Where the land is neither earth nor sea, but something caught in between, just as its most feared inhabitant exists between worlds. The locals speak of it in whispers, their eyes darting nervously toward the dense mangroves. A tiger unlike any other. A phantom that moves without sound, that leaves no tracks, that appears and vanishes like morning mist. They say it began with a hunter's greed. A life taken that refused to die. The elders warn their children, never venture deep into the forest alone. Never kill what you do not need. For the jungle remembers, and the phantom tiger never forgives. Most dismiss it as folklore, a tale to keep poachers at bay. But Raghu would learn the truth. And by then it would be too late. Raghu was not always a hunter. Once, he had been a simple fisherman, casting his nets where the rivers emptied into the Bay of Bengal. His father before him had been a fisherman. And his grandfather. For generations the family had lived in harmony with the Sundarbans. But Raghu wanted more. He had seen the wealth that came from tiger parts, the skins that adorned the walls of rich men's homes, the bones ground to powder and sold as medicine. One kill could earn more than a year of honest labor. So he abandoned his nets for a rifle. His first kill came easily, an old male weakened by age. The second, a young tigress separated from her territory. With each success his reputation grew and so did his arrogance. The forest provides, his father had taught him. But take only what you need and always give something back. Raghu had forgotten these words. Or perhaps he had chosen to ignore them. One evening, as monsoon clouds gathered above the village, the elders gathered around the community fire. Raghu joined them, his latest earnings heavy in his pocket. An old man, his skin weathered like ancient bark, spoke without looking at Raghu. There is a tiger that walks between worlds, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It was once a guardian of the Sundarbans, killed by a hunter who sought only wealth. Now it hunts those who hunt its kind. The villagers nodded solemnly. All except Raghu. A ghost tiger? He laughed, the sound harsh against the respectful silence. And I suppose this spirit can walk through walls? Turn invisible? The old man finally turned to him, his milky eyes somehow finding Raghu's. 5 hunters have gone searching for it in the past month. None returned. The fire crackled. Someone whispered a prayer. But Raghu saw only opportunity. If this phantom exists, he declared, rising to his feet, I will find it. And its pelt will make me richer than any man in this village has ever been. As he walked away, the old man called after him, the Sundarbans does not give its secrets easily, Raghu. And what it takes, it never returns. But Raghu was already planning his hunt, his mind filled with visions of wealth and status. He did not see the shadow that passed overhead, too large for any bird, too silent for any living thing. Dawn broke gray and heavy as Raghu entered the forest. He carried his trusted rifle, ammunition, and provisions for 3 days. The mangroves closed around him, their tangled roots creating a maze that only those born to the Sundarbans could navigate. By midday the air had grown thick. No breeze stirred the leaves. No birds called. Even the ever-present insects had fallen silent. Raghu had never known the jungle to be so still. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Then a track. A tiger's paw print pressed into the soft mud. Larger than any he had seen before. He knelt, fingers hovering above the impression. It was fresh. Very fresh. And yet, something was wrong. There was only one print. No trail leading to or from it. As if the tiger had descended from above, touched the earth once, then vanished. A chill ran down Raghu's spine despite the humid heat. Nonsense, he muttered to himself. The rest must be hidden by leaves. But no matter how carefully he searched, there were no other tracks. He continued deeper, each step taking him further from the known world. The trees seemed to grow denser, their branches intertwining overhead until little sunlight penetrated the canopy. As dusk approached, Raghu made camp beside a narrow stream. He built a small fire, its orange glow creating more shadows than light. That's when he heard it. Not a growl. Not a roar. A voice. Hunter. Raghu spun, rifle raised. Nothing but darkness greeted him. Who's there? He called, hating the tremor in his voice. No answer came. Only the soft lapping of water against the shore. He settled back, telling himself it was the wind or his imagination. But his finger remained on the trigger, and his eyes scanned the darkness until exhaustion finally claimed him. He dreamt of golden eyes, watching from every shadow. Raghu awoke with a start. The fire had died, leaving only cold ashes. But something else had changed. His campsite was surrounded by tracks. Perfect tiger prints circled where he had slept, forming a complete ring around him. As if something had paced around him all night, watching, waiting. Yet he had heard nothing, felt nothing. And strangest of all, the tracks ended at the edge of the stream. None led away. For the first time, doubt crept into Ragu's mind. Not fear, not yet, but a creeping unease that something here defied natural law. He packed quickly and followed the stream deeper into the Sundarbans. The water grew darker, stained with tannins until it resembled black tea. The mangroves twisted into grotesque shapes, their roots reaching up like grasping hands. Noon came and went, though little changed in the light beneath the thick canopy. Ragu found himself checking over his shoulder, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. Then the mist came. It rose from the water, not in wisps but in thick tendrils that coiled around tree trunks and slithered across the ground. Within minutes, visibility dropped to mere feet. Ragu stopped, suddenly unsure of his direction. In the Sundarbans, becoming lost meant death. The rising tides, the labyrinthine channels, the predators, both animal and human, that called this place home. A shape moved in the fog ahead. Striped. Massive. Its outline blurred as if it wasn't fully substantial. Ragu raised his rifle, his heart pounding so loud he was sure it would betray his position. The tiger stepped forward. No, it not stepped. It glided, its paws never quite touching the earth. And its eyes. They burned like embers, not reflecting light but generating their own. This was no ordinary tiger. This was something ancient. Something wrong. Ragu fired. The shot echoed through the silent forest. The bullet struck the tiger squarely in the chest. But there was no roar of pain. No blood. Not even a flinch. The phantom tiger simply tilted its head, as if curious about the metal that had passed through its body. Then it smiled, a terrible, almost human expression that revealed teeth too long, too sharp for any natural beast. Hunter. The word wasn't spoken aloud but seemed to form inside Ragu's mind. You have taken what was not yours to take. Now I shall do the same. Ragu fired again. And again. Each bullet passing harmlessly through the apparition. The tiger took a step forward. Ragu turned and ran. He crashed through the underbrush, branches whipping his face, roots threatening to trip him with every step. The mist swirled around him, sometimes thinning enough to see ahead, sometimes thickening until he could barely see his own hands. But always he could feel it behind him. Not chasing. Pursuing. Patiently. Relentlessly. As if it knew escape was impossible. The ground beneath his feet grew softer, wetter. He was entering a region of unstable mud, what the locals called breathing earth. Land that could swallow a man whole if he stood too long in one place. Ragu slowed, forced to pick his path carefully despite his terror. A growl came from his right. He turned, and saw nothing. Another from his left. Again empty air. Then ahead. Behind. Above. The tiger was everywhere and nowhere. The mist took shape, forming striped patterns that shifted and flowed around him. Every tree, every shadow seemed to hold a pair of burning eyes. What do you want? Ragu screamed, his courage finally breaking. The answer came not in words but in images that flooded his mind. A tigress protecting her cubs. A hunter, not Ragu but another before him. A shot. Blood on leaves. Cubs left motherless. The forest, diminished by each killing. The balance disrupted. Vengeance demanded by the land itself. Ragu fell to his knees, his rifle forgotten in the mud. I'm sorry, he gasped. I didn't know. I didn't understand. But you did, came the reply, the voice like leaves rustling in a forgotten tomb. All who are born to the Sundarbans know its law. Take only what you need. Give back what you can. Maintain the balance. The mist congealed, forming the solid shape of the tiger once more. It stood before him, massive, majestic, and terrible. You have taken 27 of my children, it said. Their skins adorn the walls of men who have never known hunger. Their bones are ground to dust for those who have never known pain. The phantom circled him, each step leaving a burning paw print that quickly faded. The debt must be paid. Night had fallen, though in the heart of the Sundarbans, little changed except the quality of darkness. Ragu no longer ran. What was the point? The phantom was not a physical being that could be outpaced or outsmarted. It was the forest itself. Its memory. Its judgment. The mist had thickened until Ragu could see nothing beyond his immediate surroundings. A small island of visibility in a sea of white. The phantom tiger walked beside him now, guiding him deeper into the mangroves. To where Ragu did not know. Did not want to know. Can I make amends? He asked finally, his voice small in the vastness of the swamp. Is there a way to balance what I've done? The tiger stopped, turning those burning eyes upon him. There is always a price, it said. Are you willing to pay it? Before Raghu could answer, the mist parted. They stood at the edge of a perfect circle of clear ground, unmarked by any vegetation. At its center lay a tiger's skin, ancient, cracked with age, yet somehow preserved. The first, said the phantom. The guardian who gave her life to protect this place. Killed by a hunter much like you. The mist shifted again, revealing another circle. Another skin. This one newer but still old. The second, keeper of the western shores. Circle after circle appeared, each containing the remains of a tiger. Some were barely more than bones with fragments of fur. Others looked as if they had been killed only days before. 27, said the phantom. Each taken before their time. Each leaving the forest diminished, unbalanced. The final circle contained not a tiger but a knife. Simple. Wooden handle. Iron blade. The choice is yours, hunter, said the phantom. A life for a life would demand 27. But the Sundarbans is not cruel. It demands only balance. Raghu understood then. Not death, or at least not his death. But a life dedicated to restoring what he had taken. To protecting what remained. And if I refuse? He asked, though he already knew the answer. The phantom's eyes flared brighter. Then you join the others who refused. Neither living nor dead. Bound to this place until the last tiger falls. The mist swirled, forming shapes, human shapes. Dozens of them, their features indistinct except for their eyes, which held the same hollow emptiness of those who had lost their souls. The other hunters who had come seeking the phantom. Who had failed its test. Raghu looked at the knife, then at the phantom tiger. There really was no choice at all. He stepped forward and took the blade. What happened in that clearing only the Sundarbans knows. But this much is certain. Raghu never returned to the village as the man he had been. 3 days after he entered the forest, a figure emerged from the mist that perpetually shrouded the mangrove shores. He carried no rifle. His clothes were torn, his body marked with what looked like claw marks, not wounds but symbols etched into his skin. And his eyes. Those who saw him said his eyes had changed. They now held the same golden fire as the creature he had hunted. He did not stay long. Just enough to gather a few possessions, to tell his tale to the elders who had warned him. The phantom tiger is real, he told them, his voice different somehow, deeper as if it came from the earth itself. It is the memory of the forest. It's justice. He showed them the marks on his arms, his chest. I am bound to it now, he said. A guardian to replace those I took. The villagers whispered. Some called him mad. Others touched by the spirits. But when poachers began to disappear, not dead, but found at the forest's edge, terrified, speaking of a man with tiger's eyes who moved like a shadow, they wondered. And when tigers began to return to areas long abandoned, they believed. Raghu was sometimes seen in the years that followed. A silhouette against the setting sun, watching over the borders between the human world and the wild. Sometimes alone, sometimes accompanied by a large shape that moved beside him, its form shifting between mist and solid. The hunters who had once sought tigers now avoided the Sundarbans entirely. They spoke of a curse, of a forest that hunted back. And occasionally, on nights when the moon is hidden and the tide is at its highest, those who live along the edge of the mangroves say they hear two roars echoing across the water. One, the voice of a man who gave himself to the wild. The other, the call of a phantom that found its balance restored. They say the Sundarbans holds many secrets. That it exists in two worlds, the one we see and the one just beyond our vision. They say if you enter with respect, taking only what you need, giving back what you can, the path will remain clear. But should you go with greed in your heart? Listen carefully as you walk beneath those ancient boughs. In the spaces between your footsteps, you might hear another set, padding softly behind you. And should you feel eyes upon your back, do not turn too quickly. For the phantom tiger is always watching. Always remembering. Always maintaining the balance. And some debts can only be paid in full.